Hello and welcome back to the SimTech podcast, the podcast where we talk about everything clinical simulation, from technology and equipment to behind the scenes people who bring the simulation to life. I'm your host, Craig, SimTech working in the NHS, and in this episode, we're exploring something that can make a huge difference to realism and the impact of simulation: the use of professional actors as simulated patients. Many centres rely on staff, role players, or volunteers, but there's a growing interest in working with trained actors who specialise in creating realistic, responsive patient interactions. These actors can support everything from communication skills training and patient centred care scenarios, the human factors, and those really challenging conversations that clinicians face in practice. To help us explore this, I'm joined by Dan from the Actors Forge, an organisation that works with a large network of professional actors and supports medical education and training. We'll be talking about how actors are trained for simulation, the difference they can make to immersive learning, and some advice for simulation centres thinking about introducing professional actors into their programs. So, Dan, welcome to the SimTech podcast. Hello, and welcome back to another episode here at the SimTech podcast. Today, we are stretching out a little bit away from simulation, but not too much. And we're going to be talking to Dan from the Actors Forge. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Craig. Thanks so much for having me. Really happy to be here.
Dan, can you give yourself what I generally say a corporate introduction? So who you
A
are, what you
corporate.
do? Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, sure. So I'm Dan Lemon. I'm the director of the Actors Forge, which is based out of Newcastle in the Northeast. We are the largest regional provider of adult acting education in the Northeast. We are currently host to about 100 adult actors across all of our classes. And we also have a teen and young adult branch, which is about 60 to 80 actors. So we're one of the sort of larger educational institutions in the Northeast.
Where did the name Actors Forge come from? Because when you say it to me, I gotta say it takes me back to maybe like a Dungeons and Dragons kind of feeling. Maybe
Yeah.
we're all dressed up as dwarfs and elves. Am I on the right kind of line?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. It's really a nice opening question because it takes me back to all that those years ago when I first started it. The true answer is that it kind of just came to me. I was in the Shakespeare's Head in London with a friend of mine talking about, I was training as an actor in London, talking about going back to the Northeast to set this thing up. And for whatever reason, I was just like, I want to call it the Actors Forge. And I think where it was like a fusion of the Northeast's industrial past and the fact that we were forging actors through craft and technique. And for whatever reason, the synergy kind of just went bang in my brain. And I was like, I think that's what I want to call it. I was also at the time, and still am, an enormous Game of Thrones fan. So it all kind of makes sense. So I think your analogy is quite right.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just the word where I see forge and I think anvil, and then I go straight to blacksmith, and before you
Yeah.
know it, I'm back to Dungeons and
Well,
Dragons
our
again.
our logo actually is in the shape of an anvil with the two acting heads. So you bang on the money.
Yeah. Have you? Is this always what you wanted to do, Dan? What did you want to do when you was a wee lad and you was growing up and thinking, you know what, I want to be an actor or involved, or where did your journey begin?
Yes, I mean, the short answer is it is kind of always what I wanted to do. I was writing from a young age, so I was really, really into creative writing, writing plays, poetry, anything I could get a pen to paper to. And as I sort of got to my teenage years and went to sixth form and everything like that, growing up in the Northeast, we're all kind of aware that there isn't a great deal of connection to the creative industries. That is changing a little bit, and that's certainly improving. But you, as a young man in the Northeast, I was kind of like, you just don't know how to do it. So I went to university and I studied a 4-year master's in history at Edinburgh, and I was going to do a postgraduate conversion to law, and I was going to be a lawyer. And I worked in a law firm for a little while. I did some jobs after university, and I just realised this wasn't for me. And I thought at the time, if this was going to be my life and what I was going to do with it, I might as well do whatever I want with it. So I literally packed a bag, moved to London, joined the circus, trained as an actor, and then after about 3 years of training as an actor in London, came back to the Northeast to set up this institution.
What was your vision then when you was creating it? Because you've mentioned the word training. So
Mhm.
are you a company that trains actors, or are you more than that?
Yes, so at its core, the Actors Forge is all about acting training. We are modelled on the American conservatoire style, so the kind of studios like the Stella Adler studio, these studios that cropped up in America that were designed to give actors continuous long form training in the studio environment. In whether it's Stella Adler, Konstantin Stanislavski, Stanford Meisner, all of these really foundational techniques in acting that emerged from the groups in America. That was always kind of the vision. Speaking candidly, the Actors Forge started very small. It started very, very small. The first session that I ever did, three people booked onto the class and no one turned up. So I came home to who is now to be my wife, and I said, "I'm not sure this is going to work out." And then the next week, three people booked on. The week after, four, five, six. And a lot of the starting cohort that we began with 9 years ago are actually still with the studio today. So at its foundation, it is all about actor training and actor development. But as time has gone on, we've really grown very strong industry connections. And what we've kind of become specialized in my opinion, is taking actors who have never acted before all the way up to headshots, show reels, spotlight, agency. And I just came off a phone call before I got on this call, and one of our mentors, Craig, who works with me along the medical simulation wing of the business, he actually just got offered a role on Netflix. So Craig was one of the earliest actors that ever joined the studio, and now he's gone the whole gambit from A to Z. So it's
Yeah,
brilliant.
wow. I mean, it's really great to hear about success stories 'cause it kind of
Mm.
all makes it worthwhile, doesn't it? If it almost validates you to say, yeah, maybe I picked the right choice.
Yeah.
I mean, where did medical simulation come into it then? Because it is a little bit, it might be a little bit bespoke because it probably wasn't on your agenda when you first created the
Mm.
Actors Forge. You couldn't have been thinking about simulation then.
Yes, well, there's a strange parallel career that I have alongside running the Actors Forge. So I actually worked with the NHS in medical sales and medical technology for about 12 or 13 years. So when I moved to London, I got a job for Salt Healthcare, which is stoma care. So my mother is actually a stoma care rep and has been for pretty much her entire career. And when I moved down to London, my mother put me in touch with a few contacts, got a few interviews, and managed to get a job at Salt Healthcare on wound care and negative pressure. I then left Salts and I went to join a company called AMS, so Advanced Medical Solutions, who were big in the wound care sphere. Then after that, when I moved back to the Northeast to set up the studio, during the day, I was working for a big Danish conglomerate called Coloplast. They're very big in the stoma care and urology sector, and I managed their urology portfolio in the Northeast for literally up until last year. I was still consulting for them and doing some work for them. So there was a really, really natural synergy between acting training and the fact that I'd been working with the NHS for even longer than I'd been trying to be an actor and starting up the Actors Forge. So I had what I would call a pretty good knowledge of how NHS procurement works, about how to interface with healthcare professionals. So it kind of made sense to look at the different things that we were doing in the business and think, well, that is definitely something we should look into developing.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably speaking to, I don't want to say unprofessional actors because that's not the right word, but very amateur actors. The audience will be very aware that we're all kind of, I don't want to, I don't really know what the word is, but we're all actors of varying degrees of quality
Yes.
through, you know, voluntary and involuntary actions. What kind of What kind of experience, do you have with actually going in and playing people like patients or playing doctors and nurses in a simulated environment? Because I think I've come across you guys from word of mouth where you have actors who are going to like exams, so they're playing roles for doctors and nurses who are going into exams. Um, what kind of again, come back to the question, what kind of advice would you give to mainly technicians that are going in and playing these roles? Because we've none of us have had formal training in acting. We've just kind of gone, and I think most of us are just making it up. What we feel is natural or what we feel is right. Is that kind of the right way to go about it?
I would say so. So just for clarity, are you talking specifically about if the technician was playing the role of the patient?
Yeah, because most of us just get dragged in, mostly short
Yeah.
notice, or we might volunteer, or people might be ill. But yeah, we're playing patients and stuff. But none of us have had formal training on how to be a
Yeah.
patient, so we just kind of make it up as we go along. Is that
Well,
kind
I'll
of the
give
right thing to try?
yeah, I'll give you like a super quick acting lesson, right? And take it to the
Yes,
foundation of
now
what it
this
is.
is new.
This will work. So essentially, some of the great acting theory, what you'll hear quite often is the idea of the given circumstances. So what this means is we have a particular set of imaginary circumstances within a scene. Okay, so like in medical technicians playing a patient, playing a doctor, this situation is an imaginary situation that we are creating to serve a purpose. In the acting world, that purpose is served to entertain the audience. Okay, in the medical technician world, that purpose is served to train the individual healthcare professional. So, as a result of that, we must look at it and think, what is the purpose of this exercise? So, you're absolutely right. We do make it up as we go along completely. That is literally the foundation of acting. It's the creativity that we bring to these imaginary circumstances. So, from there, the medical technician should, in my opinion, think, what are the imaginary circumstances that we're creating? What is the brief? What is the situation? And thus, what are we trying to get out of this situation to train the medical professional? So, if we think about this as a sort of barometer, right? If the situation, for example, is a patient that is emotionally out of control, so it's an incredibly intense emotional situation, and it's the far end of training sort of medical technicians in this regard, then it's incumbent upon the medical technician to do his best to try and embody what that situation would look like in reality. And that is the purpose of the role play. So the healthcare professional is better prepared for when those situations might arise. So I suppose from a sort of, and you're quite right, medical technicians and medical staff, they're not actors, they're not used to doing it. But what I would advise them to do is just do their best to give a snapshot of what this situation would really look like. And also to round this all off, if the particular healthcare professional has experienced that before, give an idea about what it looks like and how to deal with it thereafter the role play in the brief and the decompression. So yes, that's your
Yeah,
one
I mean,
acting 101.
it's a brilliant answer because you'll be making loads of clinicians very happy on how you answered it. Because when they're creating scenarios, they're all built around learning objectives. And although you didn't say
Mm.
that specific word, that's what they're trying to do when we go in there and essentially we're acting. We're trying to get over our learning objectives because that's the bottom line is what we're trying to get out of this. And everything that you do in there should be deliberate to, to highlight what we're trying to learn, and that's how it's sometimes easy to forget that when you go in there as an actor. We're very aware that we want to nail this role. These are my habits, or these are my this is the role that I'm playing. I might be a little bit confused, I might be a little bit delirious, or I might be semi conscious, unconscious. But the bottom line is we need to get the learning objectives over through our acting, and it's great to. Although you didn't say it specifically, I could pick up on that's what we were after here. What kind of scenarios do you like? What are your favourite ones? Do you have any?
Well, the truth is I think I would probably well speak for the other actors as well. When I say that the more challenging scenarios are more fun for the actors. So what I
Yes.
like to say is there's got to be a high degree of communication between the clinicians and the actors about how, as you say, you want to reach these learning objectives. But I use this in the acting classes, and I also think it's a really good thing to use in medical role play, which is hard mode. So when you say, do you want to play this on hard mode? And if you've got a very, very good actor, an experienced actor who understands the brief, understands that they're there to help the medical professional and also achieve their learning goals, yes, but let's go all the way. And you let the actor off the leash to go, whether it's full delirium or whether it's full anger or whatever, and you say, this role play is going to be as close an approximation of a real life difficult situation as we can make it, and see how the clinician reacts. So,
Yeah.
we try to work closely with healthcare professionals to deliver exactly what they want out of the training protocols. But I do love the concept of hard mode.
Yeah. Do you have a concept of what psychological safety is within actors, and what does that mean to you?
Yes, so safeguarding is incredibly important. And when we discuss the nature of that, I like to describe it in terms of how, because you always get a question from us, from actors about method acting. And you say, when we look at Konstantin Stanislavski's methods, right, the method, there is a principle within acting that draws from sense memory. So what that is it is emotional experiences that the actor might have experienced in their past that they use to map on to these imaginary situations that I've talked about. Okay, so what that means is actors might be drawing upon real life um, emotions and experiences that can be quite traumatic. So actors who are employing Stanislavski's method must have a very, very good awareness of how they conceptually take the emotion and the experience off the shelf, but very carefully place it back upon the shelf. And that's how we talk about it. And I always use certain actors, such as Heath Ledger, who was a particular hero of mine growing up, as an example of when we might go too far within the craft and we are unable to put those emotions and those experiences back upon the shelf. You see, so when employing these kind of methodologies and these complex emotional systems, we must, as you've alluded to quite rightly, we must be very, very careful how we do it. Um, so yes, we are very, very mindful of psychological well-being, whether it's the clinician or the actor. And again, drawing upon the strict parameters that are placed upon us by professionals like yourself.
I mean, it's an interesting concept because when I always think about psychological safety, I'm always thinking about the participant going in. I've never really thought about it as because the actor would essentially be part of the faculty. I've never really thought of
Mm.
it being a two-way thing because most of the time, I think the actors or the faculty they don't feel the pressure that the participant might be under. Because remember that the participant is probably not as prepared as the actor is. You know, the actor would have been given a script, and you know they'll feel that they're prepared going in. Where actually the participant might feel they have to they have to perform and think, and you know people are going to watch. And although we try our hardest to say, look, you're not going to be judged and you're not going to be criticised for going in, they don't really. They probably don't believe as fully that that's going to happen because you know they're getting microphones on them, they're getting cameras pointed at them, and essentially they're going to be going into an unknown situation. Um, and I wonder if knowing that there's professional actors in there, do you think that would worry them more or less?
I think it would probably worry them more than if they were working with a fellow clinician and they have a sort of, but that is okay because I think it's incumbent upon the actor and the medical technicians to say, look, everyone is here for you to do well. This situation has been designed to assist you, to train you. So you're quite right in the sense of don't go in there thinking this is this is designed to be really challenging for you. It is meant to have a bit of challenge in it. It is a test, it is an exam, it is an experience, it is a learning thing. But everyone in that room is on your side, including the actor. And I personally think there is nothing wrong and it's a very good thing for the actor and the medical professional to have a good dynamic and a good conversation. Because what actors do together, to give you an idea of how actors work together, if we were to do a scene, perform a scene, we'd be quite clear with one another about what the parameters of the scene is. Say the scene includes sadness or rage or whatever. This is how we've rehearsed it. This is how we've designed it. And the magic of acting is when you get into the space, you never quite know what's going to happen, and that's when you're catching the lightning in the bottle. Precisely like yourself, you never quite know what's going to happen when you go into that room with a professional actor. But there are guidelines and there are roadmaps of how this thing's going to go. So briefing the actor and briefing the medical professional to give them a little bit more confidence and guidance, that's a really great thing to do. Because to return to where I started this monologue, it's there for them. We are there to help. We are not there to act and to put pressure upon them unnecessarily. We're there to get the desired learning outcomes that you want.
Do actors like the flexibility of not really knowing where the scene will go, or do they prefer a more rigid approach? Because if you was going to do a scene, you'd probably get given a
Mm.
script. You would know what the start is and what the end is. But with a simulation, it's very much driven by the participant when they go in, how it's going to unfold, and it could come out, various different ways. Although we try to control it within the learning objectives. Does that make the actor worry about, the unknown?
Every actor is different, and every actor works in a different way. And some actors are stronger in different areas than others, right? Some actors, I like to describe them as technical actors, who you could give them a play that is 60, 70, 80 pages long. They will learn that play perfectly, word for word, and they are incredibly technically gifted, tend to make very, very good stage actors. And I work with a lot of actors who are like that. They do not like veering off script. They don't like improvisation. They like to do it their way. And that's great. It is a particular style of acting, a particular skill that is well understood and well founded. Then you get other actors who are more improvisational based. So they prefer the creativity around it. They prefer the energy. They prefer the unknown. They prefer to find it on the spot. So these actors, I would say, both actors work incredibly well for medical role play, but for different reasons. And really, my job, I suppose, whether I'm producing a play, a film, or working a medical role play, it's about picking the right actor for the right job. So some actors, I'm one of these actors, we thrive on the unknown and we like the excitement of being in that room and knowing that it's our job to facilitate the moment and go with it, while other actors prefer a strict brief and strict parameters. So yeah, it's largely dependent on what the situation demands and which actor is best for that situation.
How does an actor prepare for going on a course, or how often how in advance would you require, say, a script or a plan? For instance, if we needed something short notice, would they be able to handle maybe 1 or 2 days notice with the script, or even no notice? Do you think they could just come in and just be given a kind of a hot brief and off they go?
Some actors, the highly experienced ones, a lot of which, there's quite a number I've been working with for over 5 years. These actors would be fine. They're used to walking into an acting class. So we do 3 hour long acting classes. They're very used to walking into that room and me handing them a brief and going, "That is your scene for the evening." It may have some dialogue tags, some leading lines, and a situation on there, or they might just have to create a scene completely from scratch with no guidance. So that's some of the improvisation training, the sort of more advanced improvisation training that we will do. So there's a lot of actors in the Actors Forge who would be quite comfortable with walking straight into it and going, "Give me the page, give them a one pager. This is the condition, this is the situation, this is the emotional paradigm, this is the interaction with the patient." You might have a couple of leading lines and they could run with it straight away. Other actors would prefer a week's notice, but really it just depends on the complexity of the situation, and what the healthcare professionals were looking to get out of it. If it's a very specific condition and with specific learning outcomes, you might want to give the actor a little bit more time. But from my experience, unless they are learning a lot of very specific dialogue, a couple of pages of dialogue, or however it may have you, um, they don't need that much notice if they're experienced to really get into it.
I wonder if maybe the actors would take it a little bit too seriously, because from our experience of, it's just simulation. They're going in and they're going to be doing maybe a little bit of training. And most of us, yeah, we get given no notice before we're going in, and we make it work. And it's not a big deal if it's perfect, or it might be a little bit loose. And I'm wondering, if is there a certain professionalism that actors bring that, I'm worried that they'll come here and think, well, maybe simulation is a bit, it's not quite where I should be, and I'm quite low
Yeah.
level acting, if that makes sense.
I don't think so. I think some actors would certainly think that, but the reality is that a lot of actors, it's very very hard to make money as a professional actor. It's an incredibly competitive environment. It's one of the most competitive environments in the world, and actors have to sustain themselves between jobs. Now, medical role play is a reasonably well paid acting gig, right? It's still within the remit of what you do. Now, some actors won't want to do it because they're not interested in it and it's not the type of thing that they want to do. Other actors you find are quite interested in it and they quite enjoy it, and the pay on top of it is just an added benefit to, practicing their craft and enjoying it. But at the end of the day, there's a complex matrix of why actors want to do this. And I don't think there's any shortage of actors who are interested in doing the craft. You know, I'll never forget the first time I got paid to be a professional actor, and it was on an incredibly low budget short in London. And I could not believe I was actually getting paid to be an actor. So
When you would have
that's
done it for free.
and I was doing it for free for a very long time. And that's the thing. And that day when it comes along, whether it's medical role play or a short indie film in London, you're genuinely like, oh my God, I actually did it. Someone actually paid me money to come and say silly lines in front of a camera.
I mean, one of the things that we sometimes struggle with is maybe a lack of diversity in our actors. As you can imagine, we are generally within a certain age group, and we really struggle to get the maybe the two extremes, so probably younger ones and older ones. Um, do you kind of cover those areas as well? I know you briefly said it, but what kind of age groups are there?
Yes, we do cover that remit. I think the advantage to the Actors Forge, above and beyond other areas and other institutions is we are the largest training provider in the northeast. We have, as I've said, 100 active actors within the branch at any one time. And these cover the full age range from sort of obviously the younger teen actors is a different wing of the institution, but we've got ages 11 to 17, and we have in the adults classes everywhere up to 70, every single age range under the sun. And because we've been around for so long, we are the longest running training provider in the region of its style and its design. Our wider network is about 500 actors wide. So we've had so many actors within the forge over so much time. We have a really really broad remit. But what we tend to do is we tend to, whether it's medical role play or individual castings that come from casting directors for TV, film, and stage, we tend to only draw from the membership that is active and has been working with us for some time. So because of that, we know where they are currently in their acting journey, and we tend to have a really really good understanding of who is right for these particular roles and these particular jobs.
Mm. What kind of diversity do you deal with then? Because again, these are sometimes quite hard to get hold of. I mean, we had a question. I suppose I had a question come in from a problem that we had here at the centre.
Mhm.
And John, if he's listening, would like to know how do you either prepare or get an actor who might have a serious learning disability? For instance, he wanted to create a video with a learning, maybe like a Down syndrome kind of thing going on. But what he didn't want to do was try to play the role because he thought it would probably be, a little bit disrespectful. But there was just no way in the world we could pull that off. How would you cover something like that?
Yes, that is quite challenging for a number of reasons. I down Down syndrome is quite an interesting thing that you should bring up, because Len Collin, who I work closely with at Northumbria University, actually made a film with a lot of actors with Down syndrome, and it won a load of awards. It was incredibly famous. So that's probably one of the few areas I might have an expert who can filter in on that. And using that term expert is very very important, because it is a very complex situation when you're dealing with complex conditions. So I suppose it is difficult because actors with particular medical conditions to be featured honestly within this type of medical role play, they're difficult to find because there's not a whole lot of them. So that is the primary challenge about this diversity situation that you're talking about. The reality is that there's just not a huge pool of those actors to draw from, so they're very very difficult to find. So then you come into the next challenge and you go, do we play it? And you say, well, this I think is up for debate and up for opinion. I don't have a strong opinion on it, if I'm perfectly honest with you. But there has been a large transition in the sort of philosophical understanding of what we do as actors within the industry, and there's been this turn away from playing characters with disabilities, be it whatever disability it might be, because you're quite rightly highlighting that it is seen as impolite and not quite right. Now, I think that is a representative of the moment in time in which we live in. It may not be like that forever. But if that is the way that we feel, and that's a new moral and philosophical paradigm we've created, it does create very, very difficult challenges if you're not wanting for certain reasons for the medical technician or the actor to play that type. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, I'd
that
like to
that
say
was as political an answer as I could give you.
like you say, I know we skirt around some themes here, but that's it. We feel it now even talking about it, Dan, don't we? So
Yeah,
how can we go on camera and do something where what might make you very vulnerable to criticism? And you're completely right saying, look, we're in that period now of time where, you know, sometimes you've just got to stop on you and think, is this the right way to do it? But I
yeah.
thought, you know, this is a real, as you said, a niche, but it'd be a great opportunity if people were struggling with certain roles to come to the Actors Forge, and if you can't provide it, actually knowing someone who might be able to help.
Yes, you just have to be honest about it. I'll give you a really simple one, right? Just to sort of so we get a lot of requests from casting directors up and down the country of various levels, some incredibly huge TV shows, some really famous stuff. And they come to me and they say, Dan, we need a Northeast actor. I go, great, we've got heaps of them. Dan, we need a South Asian Northeast actor
Yeah.
aged 18. And I go, okay, I know maybe two. You know, funnily enough, we've actually had a lot more South Asian actors join the Forge just recently, which is great because everyone's always trying to cast them. But I say to them straight away. I said, look, the reality is that in this region, there's just not a lot of them, so it's hard to find actors of that diversity anyway, and then also to find the specific type of actor that you want. So it is just by the nature of things challenging to do, and it's better to simply accept that it is rather challenging. And as I say, I suppose what I'm saying is it's very, very important to be honest with medical professionals such as yourself to say what is possible and what is not possible.
Yeah. Yeah, Dan, like you said, you're going through the problems that we've been thinking as well. Because you know we are essentially sometimes we forget we are live streaming television here, and you know
Mm.
we've got to be careful. And you know the rules are the rules. One thing that I've been trying to ask Dan is probably the hardest question of the day is how much does it cost?
How much does it cost per individual actor?
Well, like you say, I guess there's gonna be a range or a depending on what we require, but just so people have, something in their head to take away, be going, is it around the ballpark that I was thinking, or is it too much? Is it too little? That kind of stuff.
Why don't you tell me what you're paying and I'll tell you what I'm charging?
Well, there we go. Okay, I'll tell you what would I get for £200 for a day?
So I'll just give you a sort of structured pricing matrix because the honest truth, the honest answer to this is they are flexible and they do change. They do go
Mhm.
up and they do go down. And the reason behind that is it depends on what the individual trust or tender requires. You know, we tender with a variety of big institutions, be it, you know, police services and things like that. So their parameters are different to other parameters. What we like to do, and what is important to us when we look at the daily rate of an actor, because we're trying to provide actors that are a little bit more trained and a bit more experienced, we actually go above equity minimum rates. So you would be looking at around £180 for a day rate for an actor for a full day there, plus the admin fees that go on top for the agency. So the particular admin fees that we would charge, which would probably be approximately £100 on average. So I would say for an experienced actor for a full day rate plus agency fees, you're looking at around 280 per actor. But
Yeah,
again,
I wasn't too far off really.
you were not too far off. You were bang on. Obviously excluding the agency fees and charges, etc.
Yeah, like you say, that's a good fee because we do a lot of virtual reality here, and I say
Mm.
virtual reality is essentially a fancy way to watch video. And we hired a couple of actors from a regional company, and I think they were, but that might have just been for a morning. So that, I think there was £200 each for a morning. How do you have any issues with being recorded? Because this was one of the problems that they came to us last time. They said some actors don't like to be recorded and put onto a video. Is that normally a problem?
I've
Oh.
never heard that before. An
Especially for
actor
actors, you
not
need to be
wanting to be recorded. is a rather strange thing.
Yeah, we thought it was.
If one of my actors came back and were like, "Dan, they wanted to put me on camera and I didn't want to," I'd be like, "It's a bit
Yeah,
strange."
I think that they were worried that it wouldn't show them in the best light because what they didn't want to do is ruin their chances, I guess. I think that's kind of how they dressed it up, is that if someone saw what they were doing and it didn't look good enough, they were worried that's, it might cast them in a bad light because, you
Look,
know, I don't
a lot of actors think and feel this way. I had a long conversation with an actor who I've known for a number of years, who's just recently done a major film, that's yet to be released, but it's really big. And he spoke to me about this subject, and he said, "Look, I'm really concerned about some of my previous work." And I said, look, that work was done at its time in its particular context. The people who love you and want to see you will enjoy anything that you do. And the truth is that if it's not on the silver screen, right, and getting millions of views, people aren't going to see it. This is not something that's going to go out on the internet or anything and it's going to get millions of views. The likelihood of that is just zero. So first of all, no one's going to see it. Second of all, there is a degree of professionalism that you are there to do a job. And if that is the parameters of the job, independent of how it makes you look, you signed up for that job and that's what you're there for. You are there to service the client and what they need within the parameters that they've set. You can't turn up to set and shoot a movie or shoot a TV show, be paid for it, and then turn around and go, do you know what? I didn't quite like that episode of Coronation Street. Can we please just not air it? So at every level, it works like that, whether it's a smaller project or a corporate project like a medical role play, or whether it's Coronation Street, Emmerdale, or Game of Thrones. You can't just ask for the episode not to be filmed and aired. It doesn't work like
know.
that.
But you see it with actors even nowadays, they've all got a history and, they'll all be in a film from, the 90s or the 80s where they first started out, they're on their own journey, aren't they? That's experience for you, you know?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and we can't judge our work too harshly. I'm sure. I mean, there's loads of stuff that I did when I was starting out. I look back on and I go, "Oh God, what was that?" But that is what I was doing at 22, where I didn't have a clue, and I wasn't being offered big things.
That shows growth though, doesn't it? That's exactly
Exactly,
what that shows.
exactly.
Dan, you mentioned the Northeast. Is it just Northeast that we're dealing with here, or if people are a little bit further away?
Yes, I mean, I suppose we have tendered for some things nationally. The only issue with tendering nationally is that we have to include the provision of travel in. So
Mhm.
we then have to put in a slightly more complex matrix, which includes travel fees and hotels if requires. But we are happy to provide uh, a more national coverage. Obviously, our main remit is within the northeast. We do work in the northwest and also North Yorkshire. So really, it's just whatever geographical remit works for people. We're happy to help, but it just makes the pricing matrix slightly more complex because of the travel requirements for the
Yeah.
actor.
I was just wondering, mainly because I like, freebies and I'm a bit of I don't have a great deal of money. What about experience and stuff? Do you have people that are after experience working in places like this?
Yes, we have just had Newcastle University reach out to us for their medical students, and they said, "Look, we can't pay for it. We're hosting a whole day to train medical students. Would you be willing to provide actors for the day?" And because it's a big industry. There's a lot of work in it. It's a wonderful opportunities for actors who are looking to get into it and have not really experienced it before to go along for a full day and really come away with some real skills in the area. So when those jobs do come up and they're getting paid for it, they're far better picked and suited for it because they've got a bit of experience on the CV. So the short answer is yes. I think it's very, very good for when those opportunities come up for actors to take them.
Wow. All right. We'll speak later then. Dan, coming up to the end of our time. How do people get hold of you if they want to know more?
So the easiest way to get hold of me is www.theactorsforge.com. All of my contact details are down there. We're across all the socials, so it's easy to find us at The Actors Forge. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, my email's on the website. Please do come to me direct. I'm more than happy to chat and fulfill whatever anyone's acting needs are.
Yeah, and I'll put all your contact information in the episode description there as well, Dan. Dan, anything you'd like to add before we sign off?
Nope, it was absolutely wonderful to talk to you, Craig. It was a really nice chat. So thanks so much for having me.
Real no, thank you very much for coming along today, Dan. It's been great to learn a bit about acting because we're all actors of varying degrees of quality around here. All right, guys. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time on the SimTech podcast. Dan, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today and sharing your insights into the role of professional actors in clinical simulation. It's been really interesting hearing about how trained actors can bring an extra layer of realism to scenarios, particularly when it comes to communication skills, patient centered care, and some of those more complex or emotional challenging conversations. And of course, learning more about the work being done at the Actors Forge and the network of actors supporting medical education has been fascinating. If you're listening and want to learn more about actor led simulation or get in touch with Dan and the team, we'll include the relevant links and contact information in the episode description. Thanks again for joining me, Dan, on the SimTech podcast.